So I've recently had some feedback that my videos have been really helping some people to learn differently to what some like tips and tricks videos would show that are made by like higher ranked like Radiant players, and that is really because at a high level Killjoy is played differently to what she is at lower ranks like Gold and Plat, just like how she's played completely differently in pro play compared to ranked in general. So I'm making this tips and tricks video with the plan to have different tips to what is normally shown in the higher ranked tips and tricks videos to help out the people that aren't getting much from the others. And the first tip that I'm going to explain is the difference between playing
Last
for
player standing.
info and playing for damage. So playing for info is what you'll see more in like pro play, which is where you generally split your util up across sites and holding different things. And you want to play for info if... Are you dead? So as I was saying, when you want to play for info is more what's going to happen on defense generally, and these are both defense play styles, just so you know. And playing for info is what happens more when your team is like struggling to find out where the enemies are. They're playing quite slow, possibly defaulting and splitting up. So, and you really just need to help your team find out where the enemies are. So I'll show an example on Ascent and Haven for an info play style. Starting with Ascent, this is something that you would have seen in a lot of other tips and tricks videos. A pretty basic Ascent info playstyle is just placing an alarm bot on mid when they try to lurk up, and then just something like a turret on B main like this. This way you're holding two different things, and if they're playing slow, you're just getting info on them wherever they're pushed up. This B main turret is used a lot, so if they are pushing up B main, they're lurking up B main, when they come around the corner, they'll hit your turret, which can trigger something like a breach stun off your team. So obviously, this type of playstyle will require you to have like a bit of communication with your team, so you can organize to like stun off your turrets and stuff. But using a turret like that can be very, very helpful, and just use enemy team's util off of your turret, which can then help you get kills and stop these slow pushes from the enemies. I'll now show an example of how this can be used on Haven as well. Now an example for the info play style on Haven. A very common one that you'll be asked to do by your ranked teammates is an alarm bot in Garage. But just remember, you don't have to listen to them. If info is something that you're not struggling with, you don't have to listen. Only do this if info is something you're struggling with. Like, let's say they're like just 5 men sprinting Garage every single round, and your teammate asks you to put an alarm bot in Garage. Realistically, that is not going to do anything against a 5-man rush coming Garage. You already know they're coming. That's going to make a couple of them vulnerable, and it's really not going to do anything to stop their push. So when you want to use the alarm bot in Garage is when you don't know where they're pushing and they're playing kind of safe. But what's used more in higher levels, or in pro play especially, for this type of playstyle, is your alarm bot can be elsewhere, maybe on A, or even just like on B. And then what you can use is this turret around here. Just place it up against the wall, and this will hold for a slow push through Garage and C. If they try to push Garage, it'll look like that. And then if they try to push C long, they will also get hit by the turret. So that's a very good way to hold for the slow push there. If you want to hold for a different kind of angle with the turret, you can. This is one that I like to do a little bit, especially when I'm just on B for some reason. You can just place the turret on top of this thing here, which will hold for the window peek off the start. If they peek, this turret will see them and get a little bit of damage on, but it's also quite hard to shoot.
Bot coming back.
Especially on Haven, this playstyle can also work on attack if you're playing slow, playing a default or something. And the best turret you can do here is just one on top of these boxes. which you can then just leave it because this will hold a push from garage and from if they try to push out B.
Recalling my
And
bot.
if you can just like adapt these playstyles into the other maps. So these are just the 2 examples I'm going to give you for Ascent and Haven, but good luck using them on other maps. Okay, so now the damage playstyle is what you want to play if quiet pushes are not what the enemy team is doing. If you're playing against a team which just pick a site every round and just like 5-man push it, just hard, just send it every round, which is what you're going to find in lower ranks like gold and around that area. You'll find most teams aren't going to play slow, they're just going to keep continuously pushing sites. And then for that, that's where you do your general setups, like
Placing
lane
sentry.
setups on B.
Placing alarm bot. Placing
Just all
swarm
the
grenade.
general stuff you'll see from
Placing swarm grenade.
other people. Like that for B.
Bot coming back.
And then for A, an example of a more defense setup would be just
Placing
what
swarm
most people
grenade.
do,
Placing alarm bot.
something like this,
Placing swarm grenade.
where every single bit of your util
Placing sentry.
is focused on doing damage and
Swarm
killing the
grenade out.
enemies. So now, obviously, this is only going to work if they are playing fast, because if they're playing slow,
Bot coming back.
you're going to have no util holding for pushes on different spots, which is also why gambling sites is very important playing Killjoy. When you're playing damage setups, you want to predict what site they're going to be on. As much as your teammates will tell you to just stay on one side and don't move, that is not the best way to play Sentinel. You can sometimes, if that's really what your team needs, they're struggling to hold one side, you can just anchor that side every round of the game. But otherwise, what you want to do is try to see a pattern in how the enemies
Swarm
are
grenade
pushing,
out.
and see if there's a pattern, like if they're going A, B, A, B, A, B, you also switch every round, and also set up A, B, A, B. And then say they get demolished by your stuff on A, switch to B the next round, because they'll probably not want to push A again after that. And then if they win a round on one side and you were on the other side, switch to that side that they were on, because they'll most likely push it again thinking you're not going to be there. So you've just got to try to play mind games with them, try to predict what side they're going to go, and then place your damage setup based on that to try to get as much, well, damage and kills out of it possible. So damage setups are the ones that you see in the videos that get all the clips, because that is where all your util is going to do the damage and get the kills on the enemies. So now moving on to the second tip I've got, which is just a simple one. Just alt lineups are a very good thing to have. If you're only wanting to learn one type of lineup, learn alt lineups, because post-plant lineups can just be placed on the bomb if you don't want to learn them, whereas alt lineups are very helpful and will get you a lot of kills and impact on the game. So now I'll show you an example on A. A very common one is the ult here and then throw a molly into wine. So, like this one,
Initiated. My ultimate is ready.
come into the corner, and then just like throw the molly in this gap here.
Placing swarm grenade.
So that will land wine and completely
Swarm
just
grenade out.
kill anyone
Area's clear.
standing behind,
Who could have?
because they'll have nowhere to run to, so they either get detained or die to the molly. And there are alt lineups from the majority of maps: Split, Haven, Ascent, just to name a few. So if you learn a lot of them and find spots to ult and leave a gap, you will catch a lot of people and get a lot of impact on the game. The next 2 tips are going to be focused around the 2 parts of what I just did. The next 2 tips are, one's going to be around the ult, and the next one is going to be around the lineups aspect. So we'll now move on to those. This tip is now centered around the finding of lineups, especially for those ult lineups or for the post-plant lineups if that's the playstyle you want, which is very much like what I do. And for this, it's good to know which agents have the same weighting as Killjoy's molly. So these agents are Viper, Killjoy, Deadlock, Gecko, KO, And that's all I can remember off the top of my head. There's probably another one that I'm missing, but at least those agents that I've just named, their mollies, or as for Viper, her orb has the same weighting as Killjoy. For Deadlock, it's her mesh, her like net that has the same weighting. But the tip here is that all those agents will be able to use the same lineups, and to find them for Killjoy, the best way to do it is to use Viper, because in custom games, her orb will show on the map where it's going to land. So if I just go mid, you can see that if I was going to aim here, you can see on the map that it's going to land like bottom mid. So this is also very helpful to find lineups. Like, I'll just use one of my lineups that is the most common one on Ascent. Just stand in this corner, aim around here for default, and you can see where that lands on the map. So Viper's Orb is a very helpful tool that you can use to just find any lineups for Killjoy or any of the other agents that I named that have the same weighting as Killjoy on their mollies. Okay, so the fourth tip, also leading on from the ult lineups, the other aspect of it is the ults. So obviously ulting on defense is very good with the ult lineups, can be also used on attack, but the other main thing I want to talk about is how to use your ult on attack, because they keep adding agents, and there are a lot of agents in the game that have easy abilities and ults that will just easily just wipe out your ult and you'll get value out of it. The biggest example is probably Brim. There will always be a Brim on the other team just holding their ult, waiting and just preventing you from using yours. And one way to do it is just hope that they use it, and just use your ult, and just keep not using your ult so that they don't use their Brim ult. But a better way to do it is a fake ult. So what that means is you'll communicate with your team to, like, on Ascent, say, you get your team to all sit outside a main, no noise, don't get scanned by util, etc. And then you will or with one other person, make noise at the other site, say, and you use all your util. You'll try to get as many of the enemy players to that site as possible. And the reason this fake works so much is when you put your ult down, the enemy team really believe the push, and in higher ranks it might not work as much, but it will still definitely work. But they'll probably have an extra person or something rotate to the site you ult, and you'll get Brim ults, etc. out of the enemy team. Like, I had a game the other day where I did this, I fake ulted B, and they used a Raze nade, a Brim ult, and a Sova ult on my ult, and then my teammates just pushed the other side and got a free site. So what this will look like is you'll just ult B.
Initiated! My ultimate is ready!
Just keep holding
Prepare for hellfire!
The Brim ult,
Lockdown destroyed!
which will kill it. But while this is happening, they've probably got 3 or 4 people on B believing the push, while your teammates just lurk up A and get a free site. And then you've got a free site because of your ult, and at the same time you've also baited a lot of util and big util out of the enemy team. Tip number 5 is now going to be centered around setups. So moving on to the lineups now, we're on to the setups, and this is a mistake that I very commonly see in low ranked, and I remember seeing it a lot when I was in low ranked on the odd occasion that I didn't play Killjoy and someone else did. And what you'll see is you'll see lower ranked players and even higher ranked players
Placing swarm
placing their
grenade!
mollies in a setup
Placing swarm grenade!
way too close to each other, something like this, which when you activate them,
Swarm grenade out!
there is a massive overlap, and you don't want an overlap in your mollies because it's not going to do any extra damage, and it's just reducing the area in which you'll be dealing damage. So once you get used to it, you'll be able to just predict how far it's going to be between your mollies, and if you have setups where you place the mollies in a specific spot every time, obviously that helps as well. But really, the distance is about 8 meters between your mollies. It's a good overlap, because you don't want them to be like pixel perfect, like just touching each other, because if they're too far
Placing swarm
apart
grenade. Placing swarm grenade. Swarm grenade
like
out.
that, then you leave this massive gap like in the middle because they're circular. So they're only touching slightly in that middle, and you're just going to leave gaps where people can stand to avoid damage. So you do want some overlap, but not too much. Which, like I said, the distance is about 8 meters. So let's just say for some odd reason I wanted to make it set up here. You could at the start while you're learning
Placing
place
swarm
one
grenade.
volley, ping it,
Here.
and then just move about 8 meters away. It's just not going to work. Okay.
Here.
Ping it. Walk about 8 meters away. And
Placing
then place
swarm
your
grenade.
second volley.
Swarm grenade
That will
out.
give you a pretty perfect overlap and create pretty much the biggest area possible to damage your enemies. And that can be used any way you want, just to make a setup and just annihilate the enemy team. Okay, so now this next tip is centered around using your util as bait. This comes primarily down to turret and alarm bot, and I know I'm showing on Pearl. That's because I have a pretty good example on B, but obviously it's very easily adaptable to any map, and Pearl will come back into the game at some point. So, yeah. So the first idea is, this is a tip that turns Killjoy into more of a duelist, if that's your type of playstyle. And just, when you're swinging a corner where you know there's an enemy there, place a turret first, and then swing. Because what this will do is you place the turret, they'll drop their crosshair to it, and then when you swing, it'll throw their crosshair placement off, and get you the kill. This works with an alarm bot as well. If someone's close, like if someone's standing right there, you just alarm bot out.
Place an alarm bot.
You can swing, because this person here could just see the alarm bot and completely turn around to try to shoot it. And then when you swing, they'll be facing the opposite direction. It works a bit like a sky fake flash.
Bot coming back.
So I'll show you an example here of what it would look like. So if I have my little jet, wherever she is, so I'll show you the example here. So if come here. So for like this example, if say you're in this situation, or just on any map, this works really well because you can place it on one side and then pick out the other. You can place the turret on one side and then peek and kill it.
Let me just swipe
Because
those
as you can
items.
see,
Recalling my bot.
take that back. Their cross placement's dragged over here, and then you pick from this side and they have to try to flick to kill you. And I'll show you that this works with like an alarm bot as well. Like if I'll do it from over here actually. Over here. So like this, if I know they're there, place an alarm bot over there,
alarm bot.
they just completely turn around. I swift, but they completely turn around to look at the alarm bot, and then you get the free kill. The amount of clips I get with this is amazing. Even in high ranks, people try to quickly flick to the. You just gotta peek at the right time. In high ranks, people will quickly flick to the alarm bot or turret, try to kill it quickly, and then flick back. But if you peek quick enough, there you will have no chance, and they'll just die. The other example of using util as bait is an example on Pearl here, which is used where you can use your turret as a crossfire. So if you're in a low rank and your teammates are completely brain dead, so even in Ascendant they're still brain dead, and they don't want to communicate or make plays with you, use your turret. It's probably just as good as your teammates anyway. So for an example here, I used to always place a turret up here. This ensures that as they're pushing up B long, they can hear the turret, and then you can say play screens, and then when they entry, they will come in and they'll be looking at your turret instead. And then you just get a free kill. It's the same idea as...
Recalling my bot. Get out of my way!
It's the same idea as playing a crossfire with a teammate, just you're playing it with your turret instead of your teammate. Okay, so now this tip is one that another mistake that low elo players make is they always tend to think that your alarm bot is made for watching flank. And that may be the case sometimes, but on the majority of maps, I use a turret The only place I really use an alarm bot is on Haven Seaside, but even because then you can space your turret long to hold long. But most maps you want to use your turret to hold flank, and that is simply because it's got a long sight line. It can see people from across the map. Say on Lotus, you place your turret here. This will see people if they're trying to flank, even if they're all the way back in your spawn still.
Bot coming
so
back.
You get a lot more earlier information on flank, and it could even convince the enemy to not even flank. So, whereas if you had your alarm bot here, you're not going to find out that they're flanking until they get to here instead, which at this point, they're just going to peek and kill you. And especially on maps like this, where you've really got to play with the range on your util, because it's going to play a big factor in it. Because the other reason is that you also want to save your alarm bot for stuff to help your duelist's entry and play Killjoy as a bit of an initiator. So what you can understand here is that you can really use Killjoy to play any kind of agent you want. You can play an initiator role, you can just play the general sentinel role, and I've showed that you can play as a duelist. The only role you can't really play is smokes, because you don't have smokes. But the example here would be that smokes, you want to save your alarm bot. You just need to save your alarm bot so that if you're pushing up and the enemy have a choke point smoked off, you can say use your alarm bot to clear the smoke. Because let's say you have your alarm bot on.
Placing alarm bot.
What's going to happen is you're going to try to push side, and your team is just going to walk into a smoke and get absolutely shit on like that. Whereas if you save your
calling my bot,
you instead have your turret flank, which gets the longer sidelines. You can then instead use your alarm bot inside a smoke that you see.
Placing alarm bot. Found them.
Which will tell you that there's someone in there, possibly even a judge if they try to shoot it, which can then instantly just tell your team to not push that side, essentially. As this map on example, either or run back and rotate away from the judge, making it harder for them, and so your team just doesn't get absolutely clapped. The other way that the alarm bot can be used is
recalling my
if they
bot.
don't smoke, or they don't have a judge in there, like you've seen the smokes player somewhere else. Say pushing on a side here as an example, you can just chuck your alarm bot into the left.
Alarm bot out.
Or
bot coming back.
Clear the inside of
placing
the
alarm bot
and use it like that instead.
Recalling
what
my
I'm
bot.
trying to say here is the turret is much more valuable in flank, which works well because your alarm bot is much more valuable in your hands to clear corners like smokes or other spots. So what will happen here most of the time is that on this map, I'll have a turret on flank, and then as we push up, I will alarm bot my own team
alarm bot
stairs,
out.
so that as we push in, someone doesn't just walk out stairs and kill us. Whereas if you had a turret,
recalling my bot,
it's just not going to be as easy to do because your turret can't place as far away either. Tip number 8 is another one that turns Killjoy into a bit of a duelist, which is the turret boosts. This is the one that gets reactions from the enemies a lot of the time. So these are the ones where you get up into really stupid spots as Killjoy, using your turret as a boost if your teammates don't want to. So a really easy one on bind is to just get up on top of these boxes, and you just want to aim the leg of your turret up like this area here in between the shaded bit and the edge. So it'll be that back leg up like that.
Placing sentry.
And then you can just jump in here, and then just jump crouch on top of here.
Bot coming back.
And now when the enemies walk around this corner, they're not going to be expecting a Killjoy up top here. And then the second turret boost, I have one that is very inconsistent to do. So it'll be very hard at the start, but with practice you can get it somewhat consistently, but just keep trying it every couple of rounds and eventually you'll get one that works. The lineup for this one is you have to be on at least medium graphics for this. You can't be on you can't be on low for these. I don't know which one it is specifically, but just be on medium. Because you have to be able to see this thing here. So you're looking for this little crack, and you're aiming that front turret leg up with somewhere around the crack. I don't really know where. It's somewhere there. I think it's like on the crack. Just get used to it, and then you can jump into the gap, and then jump up onto the box. So as you can see, once you get used to it, you can do it pretty
Recalling my
consistently.
bot.
And then you get up here, which even here is a good angle, but which is where I sit most. But if you're feeling really risky, you can try to make the jump on top of that box, which I have actually got one clipper that it was in one of my videos. Don't know if you saw it, but I did get a clip on top of this box, which I'll try to make the jump now, but it's a very hard jump. So yeah, I didn't make it that time, but pretty much you can jump up from here, which especially if you get up here, but even there, when an enemy comes around the corner, they're just not going to expect a Killjoy up here. Weird off angle, especially if the enemy team doesn't have like a jet or something, they're just not going to be looking up here. And when they get tapped, and when they get tapped by a Killjoy, getting tapped by a Killjoy who's up here just isn't something you'll be used to, and you'll definitely get a reaction out of people. Our second last tip is a cheeky tip for if you really want to diff the enemy Killjoy. A really good way to assert your dominance. Your mollies will kill any enemy Killjoy mollies, so either using lineups if you want to be special, or just, like on Ascent, just finding a way to throw it where they're going to set up. You can get pretty much annihilate their entire setup, allowing your team to push side. Like for the example here, the majority of Killjoys will place all their utils on lane, and if you want to test that, you can come up against this wall, and you'll be able to hear their mollies. If you want to test that, if they're there, and then before your team pushes in, just chuck a molly through the window and get rid of it all.
Placing swarm grenade. Swarm grenade out.
There goes the molly and the alarm bot. So if you know where they set up, just molly it and get rid of it. And then, like now, if I run down lane, I've skipped a whole molly and alarm bot, and I've now only got... I got rid of both mollies. See, that one worked perfectly, so that got rid of the entire setup with one molly. And then you still have a molly left to play lineups or whatever you want to do. So yeah, so that's that tip. You can do this on any map. Just learn where they set up and throw your mollies at them.
Placing swarm grenade.
Okay, so our final tip is a pretty generic one, but it is just to be creative. Not every tip is going to work in all circumstances, and you've really just got to, like with all the other tips, just exactly like the idea of the info or damage playstyles. Everything's just about adapting to the enemy's playstyle and what they do. Like, I'm going to give some examples of times that, like, I've been creative, or just creative ideas that I've seen people do. So, I had one game on Split where every round the enemy team, I don't know what agent it was, I think it was like a Omen and a Raze. Every round they would just either smoke heaven, and then just like satchel and TP, they would just into heaven every round. They would just 5-man push straight into heaven. So one round, what I decided to do was give them a little present. I put an alarm bomb
Placing alarm bomb.
and a molly,
Placing swarm grenade.
and then with the rest of my util just did like a general
Turret
like
out.
that. And this.
Placing swarm grenade.
This way. Then the next round, when they did it, they got hit stun from the turret, got demolished by this, and then the rest of the team got damaged by this. And this actually killed the Raze that satcheled in. So that was one example, so I'll show you here. So let's say they have an Omen that always TPs up. This is what's going to happen to them when they do it.
Found them. Swarm grenade out.
They TP up, and if it gets them, they'll die pretty quickly if they're stupid. The rest of the team will get hit by this. And
Swarm grenade out.
So that's one example.
Recalling my bot.
Another example is I played against a team that just kept on pushing mid, and they just kept alternating. One round they went here, 1 round they went vents, 1 round male, 1 round vents. So I timed it. On the rounds that I predicted they were going to go vents, I gave them a present.
Alarm bot out. Placing swarm
Vents.
grenade.
And then
Turret
said,
out.
screw it, a turret hits them as well. So then when the team dropped into vents, they just got demolished.
Found them. Swarm grenade out. You tried.
Goodbye to the enemy
Recalling
team.
my bot.
So that's some examples of how you can like use setups creatively to like adapt to the enemy team's playstyle. And now one of the coolest tricks to do that's just creative is the idea of shooting through your turret's legs. So the shooting through legs in the turret, a common example is on B side descent. Just place the turret as far on this corner as possible. Place it over the corner
Placing
like that.
sentry.
And then just shoot through with the turret when they peek. So when they peek B main, you'll be in the turret. It does work especially well with an op. You can stand here as well with an op, and then when they peek, you get 3 kills to the turret's legs.
Recalling
Pretty
my
creative,
bot.
you blend in well, and I will show you one more on Sunset. And now an example that I've seen from someone on Sunset is this one on mid. A very nice angle to sit on your turret here, place it on top of here, crouch, and then when they peek, it takes a while with your wall banging, but you will get the kill.
Recalling my bot.
But this one especially works a lot better with an op, so you may even want to place the turret and then get your jet or someone to look through it, and then they can just take a shot through the turret and then dash out.
Placing sentry.
So like this, when they peek, you can just op them through
Bot
the
coming
turret's
back.
legs, and you'll be blending in and very hard to see. So that's gonna wrap up my 10 tips that I have. I hope a lot of these helped, and I hope that they were somewhat different to what you've heard from other YouTubers. So, and I would say from my experience, a lot of these are ones that will help out in gold, and definitely ones that I use when ranking up, all the way from silver, playing Killjoy. So, hope you enjoyed, and hopefully you can find some success using these in your games.
And I love men.